Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2017 Pokemon International Championships here in beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana. Thank you, Anna, so much for that glorious introduction. My name is Evan Latt, and I am here by the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, three-time world champion, Ray Rizzo. Good morning, Ray.
Evan, good morning. Thanks for that wonderful introduction.
I'm going to find some new things for next time.
Yeah, you're going to have to spice it up a little bit more, but so excited
enough
to be here. We saw so many incredible matches yesterday, and we are bound to see even more intense matches today as we've got the Day 2 players, the players who finished 7-2 or better yesterday, competing today for the title of first ever North American International Champion.
That's right. Yesterday we had an incredible full day of Pokemon battling where we cut to our final top 36 players. So all those players ended up having to be 7-2 or better, and they get to play today. And if you thought yesterday was packed full of Pokemon action, you're not going to believe what we have in store for you today.
Yeah, this is such a long and grueling tournament. You have 9 rounds in day 1 to get through, and then if you manage to make it through that, then you have to play another 6 rounds today, and it's just such a tough task for these trainers, staying mentally focused, staying hydrated, staying well rested, staying focused, so that they can play their best on the battlefield.
Yeah, and actually let's take a look at our schedule for today to see what we have in store for you. We are going to go through those 6 rounds of Swiss. That'll be a total of 15 rounds for these players as their records have carried over. And then later today, we will start into our top cut. So after we finish the rounds of Swiss today, we will actually cut to our top 8, see what that record is for our 8th place finisher, our 8th seed, and then add in anyone who has that exact same record. So we will have an asymmetric top cut here, and we will be bringing you much of that action live here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and speaking from experience, the top cut portion of the tournament is by far the most stressful for the players because it's an elimination round. If you lose, you're done. Normally in Swiss, you can afford to drop a couple of matches and still move forward, still advance to the further rounds of the tournament.
Absolutely.
But in the top cut, you cannot afford that. You have your 3 games, so you can afford to drop 1 game, but that's it.
Yeah, no matches.
No room for error in the top cut, and that's what makes those matches so intense, especially when they go to that 3rd game where you just know the players are really feeling the pressure, and as a caster watching those kind of matches, it's just so exciting.
Yeah, I've only had a few top cuts in my day, and I still get nervous sweats from remembering how stressed out I was before going into my first rounds, and it's nothing on the level of the North American International Championships. So these players have to show a pretty astounding display of mental fortitude to get through that.
Yeah, and every player who has experienced a top cut can at least remember a time where they were just on the brink of elimination and maybe they just somehow pulled through a victory, and it's just such an incredible feeling to be able to do that, to be able to advance to that 3rd game and then manage to win and move on. And it's unfortunate for those who go home, but you got to declare a winner.
Exactly. And thank you so much to those of you who have woken up early to join us here in Indianapolis on the stream. If you could not be here in person, that is unfortunate, but fortunately for you, you have me and Ray and our fellow casters to help guide you through the action. And if you want to get involved, you can also follow us on multiple social media platforms. My favorite, twitter.com/Pokemon. You can use that hashtag #PlayPokemon to cheer on your favorite players, comment on the action. I know whenever I'm off camera, you can usually find me with my head down, thumbing through my Play Pokemon mentions.
Oh, absolutely. Me too.
Of course, if you want to get involved with the larger community, you can go to that facebook.com/Pokemon. After the event, if you missed any of the action, there are 3 streams here at the Indianapolis International Championships. Go on to youtube.com/Pokemon to catch up on any of the video game matches you may have missed or the trading card game matches which are happening at the same time. And of course, this building looks great. Our team has done a phenomenal job decorating the stadium, and if you can't be here in person, following us on Instagram.com/Pokemon for images and videos from this really gorgeous convention center. It's about as close as you can get without actually being here.
Yeah, if you're not able to join us here today, there's a number of ways on social media you can check us out. Feel like you're actually here, living through the action, experiencing the matches live, following it on Twitter, speaking with other trainers, using that hashtag #PlayPokemon, or even if you manage to just miss the event, you can look at the scenic pictures on Instagram, catch up on any action you missed on some of the other streams on YouTube. So there's a number of ways you can kind of live like you're at the event.
Yeah, and then of course once you do that, you'll absolutely make sure that you don't miss the next one, right?
Oh, absolutely. You see how exciting this event is, make sure to come to the next one.
Yeah, that's what got me going to my first few events, was just seeing all of my friends ending up at the tournaments and having a good time, and then me being like, why am I not there?
Yeah, I felt the same way when I first started, just seeing everybody experience these kind of events, and it just seemed like so much fun hanging out with other Pokemon fans around the world, and it just got me into it, and that's how it all began.
And in addition to having fun with your friends, these players are also competing for a pretty significant prize pool here. Over $150,000 in prizes will be given out between the trading card game and video game tournaments, which is a not insubstantial chunk of change right there.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to win at this tournament, and there's a lot of pride on the line for these players, but there's also some very nice prizes, not only in that cold hard cash, but also some championship points.
Most of these players that we're going to be looking at have basically already secured their Worlds invite. A lot of them have secured it by getting to this point, but some of them still need to actually win the tournament or place, in the top 2 or top 4 to actually guarantee their invite to Worlds. And actually, a lot of the players that we're going to be looking at now are actually in the running for Day 2 Worlds invites, which allows them to skip that first round of Swiss, those first 9 rounds like you just saw.
That's big. You
enter Day 2 straight up.
Yeah, that is such a big advantage. You get to avoid 9 entire rounds of Swiss at the World Championship, where you're already playing against the best of the best. So getting to skip straight towards Day 2, it just improves your chances of winning. And for these players that are really hungry for that World Champion title, getting this Day 2 invite for Worlds here today,
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal for them.
Yeah, and of course they also get the title of North American International Champion. You heard Anna mention it at the start. There has not ever been one before, so they will be the first ever international champion from North America. And as well, some additional trading card game booster packs. Now is a really good time to get into the game if you aren't already. And a lot of video game players also play the trading card game, so it's a really interesting way to sort of get people involved in both games.
Yeah, Pokemon has a number of trading card video game. All of it is enjoyable. All of it's Pokemon. I've met a number of good friends playing both games, so it's a lot of fun to try and get into both.
One of our former world champions is now on the grind to become one of our former video game world champions, Sajan Park, is now on the grind for the trading card game world championship.
That's
as
right.
Well.
Maybe he'll be the first ever world champion of both trading card and video game.
Yeah, and when he becomes a Pokken Tournament world champion, he'll have a triple crown.
That'll be the day.
All right, well, let's take a look at the format for the tournament. Of course, yesterday we finished up our first phase, which was Friday Swiss, and we cut all players with an X2 record. So we had 36 players who had an X2 record or better. They will all be playing today in Saturday Swiss. Another 6 rounds of Swiss, and then at the end of those 6 rounds, we will actually seed like normal, and then take a look at our top 8, see what the record of our 8th seed player is. And then anyone who has that same record will also be added to Top Cut. So an asymmetric bracket, which will then have sort of a buy-in round, then cut to our standard top 8, top 4, and then finals on Sunday.
Yeah, this is really good for the players. I'm sure they're all very excited to see this, because no longer do you have to deal with tiebreakers, things that are usually outside of the player's control. Now it's all dependent on that 8th seed's record. So things are now much more in the player's control. Don't have to worry about tiebreakers if they're kind of on that borderline of, do they top cut barely or do they just barely miss? So players are very happy to see that.
The bubble has been popped.
That's right.
Yeah, everyone gets to play based on their own record and not the record of their opponents or their opponents' opponents.
And we've all been there. We've all missed out on cut due to factors like that. But
all right. Well, that is enough yapping from the both of us. I know that everyone out there would probably just listen to Ray and I talk, instead of watching any of these matches. But Ray, I love you, but I kind of want to see some
Evan,
fun.
Me too, especially with the match that we have coming up. We've got what looks to be a really, really exciting match between
really
two top players.
That is Nick Navarre on the left-hand side of your screen and Markus Stadter of Germany on the right-hand side. So we have a nice Germany versus United States of America matchup here in our first round. Both of these players finished yesterday at 8-1, so only dropping 1 set apiece. This is such a good matchup to start off the day.
Yeah, we've got one of the top leaders in the championship point standings in Europe in Markus, and then also Nick in America. So we have got 2 players who are gunning for that Day 2 invite at Worlds here, and Markus is also a fellow caster, so don't want to show any bias there, but
Yeah, both of these players between them probably have more championship points. Enough championship points to qualify for Worlds about 6 times over.
Yeah, they're probably approaching like 2,000 total championship points combined. So
Yeah.
2 incredible players.
All right, well, here we are in team preview already. Nick's team on the left and Marcus's on the right. Nick running the Buzzswole Chansey team we saw a little bit of yesterday alongside Gyarados and Arcanine, the double Intimidators, and that Metagross that has been picking up popularity throughout this tournament alongside the standard Tapu Koko. While Marcus is running a very interesting Porygon Z's team. That's Porygon Z with Smeargle, Nihilego, Tapu Bulu, Hariyama, and Arcanine.
Yeah, Marcus's team is very interesting. It's going to be important for Nick to really figure out what kind of sets Marcus's Pokemon are running. That Porygon Z can run a number of different sets. There's Z Conversion, there's Z Hyper Beam, there's the possibility of Trick Room because we do see the Smeargle, the Hariyama. There's definitely the potential for that as well. So it's going to be really important for Nick to figure out what these sets are. Nihilego is another Pokemon that can potentially set up Trick Room even though it's so fast and not very physically bulky. It's another Pokemon that could potentially set up Trick Room.
And that's even without mentioning Smeargle, about how you need to figure out what that Smeargle is going to run. It could still be just the standard. We've seen a lot of fake out and spore style Smeargles, but Smeargle has all of the tricks in the game.
Yeah, luckily for Nick, he does have Tapu Koko, so the terrain, if he's able to get it up over Marcus's Tapu Bulu's grassy terrain, he is going to be able to prevent Spore on his Pokemon. Well, other than Gyarados. But
all right, well, here we go. Game 1 of round 10 of Swiss here. It's going to be Nick Navarre versus Markus Stadter. The players have sent out their leads. Marcus has decided to lead with that Smeargle and Porygon Z, both of his tricky Pokemon out on the field immediately, while Nick opts for the double intimidating duo of Arcanine and Gyarados. But, you would really like to hit one of those physical attackers. Porygon Z and Smeargle probably not too worried about tanking those Intimidates.
yeah, so Smeargle can go for a fake out onto one of these two Pokemon. If Marcus is fearing a Z move from Gyarados straight away, he could just go for the fake out there, or he could just target the Arcanine, maybe predicting Gyarados to protect, because Porygon Z does carry Thunderbolt a decent chunk of the time, and that would be a clean knockout onto Gyarados. If Marcus has Z Conversion, this could be the exact turn to set it up with the fake out pressure from Smeargle. Of course, if it's not, and it's something like a Z Hyper Beam, then that's threatening a one-hit KO on either of these two
Basically
Pokemon.
anything.
And of
We
course,
look at Porygon 2 and we think of it as a sturdy, immovable object. Porygon Z is the exact opposite.
yeah, Porygon Z, very, very powerful thanks to its sky-high special attack. It's just threatening a lot of damage here.
Yeah, as always, Porygon Z will be threatening a lot of damage. Nick just wants to get off as much damage as possible. Looks like an extreme speed onto that Porygon Z, showing a Life Orb on that Arcanine. Map Block coming out from the Smeargle. Of course, it does not block the extreme speed because of its increased priority there.
No, but look at this Z move coming out from Gyarados.
Yeah, the bouncy Gyarados will go for its, flying Z attack.
That map block, that is not the type of move you expect to see on a Smeargle, but wow.
Like we mentioned, Smeargle can do just about anything. And there is going to be the Flyinium Z into Porygon Z, but because of the map block, it is protected. And here comes the Z move coming out from Marcus. It is going to be the Z move onto the Porygon Z, and it looks like it will be that conversion. Porygon Z basically boosting everything about itself.
Yeah, so it's going to boost its stats there, and it is going to become an electric type, so that's going to be good against Gyarados, but it does have to watch out for another extreme speed
that
from
extreme speed
Arcanine.
did a lot of damage.
That did do a lot of damage, that Arcanine, revealing the Life Orb as well. That's usually not the item of choice for Arcanines, because Arcanine prefers to be so bulky, take advantage of Intimidate, and usually goes for the 50% Healing Berry, but here we see Life Orb, and it's really paying dividends because this extreme speed is maybe threatening the KO there on Porygon Z.
Yeah, it looks like it might be close. But of course, Smeargle does have options. It could potentially use a Spore while Porygon Z protects itself. But of course, if Nick brought that Tapu Koko, like you mentioned, that would protect the Arcanine from the sleep status.
Yeah, though that is risky because if Porygon Z hangs in there, then you're powering it up because it is an electric type right now.
Marcus instead opting to just go for the Intimidate onto both the Arcanine and the Gyarados. A different way of reducing the attack of Arcanine and Gyarados here. Porygon Z does just go for a Thunderbolt now onto Gyarados after that Z conversion. That is the easiest one-hit KO I think I've ever seen. But now Arcanine not going for the extreme speed, will go for the Flare Blitz instead. Through the Intimidate, going for the more powerful Flare Blitz will actually pick up that KO.
Yeah, good play by Nick there, switching it up, going for the Flare Blitz instead. Fully
Great
expecting
adaptation.
Markus to switch in the Arcanine for the Smeargle, get the Intimidate off. You could see what Markus was going for, maybe predicting an extreme speed, which with the Intimidate, Porygon Z would have been able to hang on, but not able to take a Flare Blitz from a Life Orb Arcanine with that low of an HP.
Absolutely. But Porygon Z did knock out the Gyarados. Both Z moves have been used for Nick and Markus. So we'll have to see if Markus has some more offensive pressure in the back. We know he has Smeargle, but Smeargle does not put forward a lot of offensive pressure at all. Markus will need to have a fourth Pokemon that can actually do some damage against now this Tapu Koko and Arcanine. And it looks like he's going with the Hariyama.
Yeah, this Tapu Koko from Nick is looking like a big threat because, of course, typing-wise, very strong against Hariyama, and with the electric terrain, it is going to be doing a lot of damage to Markus's Arcanine, and Smeargle poses no offensive threat whatsoever. So Nick, I like his position here. It's going to be tough to deal with both Arcanine and Tapu Koko for Markus. Now, Markus is threatening fake-out pressure on this turn with the Hariyama, but Nick will be able to get an attack off with one of his Pokemon. If he so chooses, he might just go for the Protect on both, but we've actually seen Hariyama carry Feint before, so if Markus is predicting that, maybe he goes for something like a Feint plus Flare Blitz.
Yeah, always possible. Of course, Hariyama and Arcanine both really powerful physical attackers. We've already seen Nick lost one of his Intimidators, but he still has Arcanine who could switch out and continue to cycle some Intimidates on both of these Pokemon. Knowing that the final Pokemon in the back is Smeargle, that Intimidate gets a lot more valuable. And as you see, Nick will retreat his Arcanine because of that.
Yeah, great switch in there, preserving Intimidate, getting Metagross out, which will be strong against that Hariyama.
Strong against Hariyama, but weak against the Arcanine. Hariyama goes for the Feint, but there were no Protects on Nick's side. Nick was not worried about that at all. Instead, just going for the Volt Switch to deal some damage to Arcanine. A critical hit, dealing a little bit over 50% as Tapu Koko will retreat and now be able to cycle that Intimidate from Arcanine in the back.
Great play from Nick there, readjusting his board and getting the pressure out, getting the Intimidate back out. Really nice play.
Yeah, Intimidate now off onto both Hariyama and Arcanine. Markus does still have the Smeargle in the back, so he can reset the attack, but for this turn, Arcanine with its Bulldoze actually going to deal reduced damage, but lower the speeds of both Metagross and Arcanine. But as we've seen so much through this tournament,
item.
That weakness policy will get activated for free on Metagross.
And it's not even going to lower its speed thanks to that clear body. So this Metagross is going to be a big threat right now. It's going to be really tough for Markus here.
All right. Markus did get some super effective damage off, but at what cost? And with the Intimidate dealing even less than it would like to.
Yeah, since Markus's Arcanine is intimidated here, its Flare Blitz will not be able to pick up the knockout onto Nick's Metagross. So Metagross will be able to get an attack off this turn.
All right, well, Markus needs to preserve that Hariyama to potentially get the momentum back with the Fake Out. Switching in Smeargle instead, probably hoping to just sacrifice that Smeargle to get Hariyama back in for free. But with the Intimidate, like you mentioned, that Flare Blitz is not enough damage on Metagross. Deals a good amount, but Metagross still able to stick around here. Zen Headbutt will come out, so will target down the Smeargle, which will go down here. So Markus sacrificing that Smeargle to protect Hariyama and then reset a potential Fake Out here. But Wild Charge being shown by Nick's Arcanine will pick up the KO on Markus's Arcanine in that electric terrain. So really strong plays coming in here from Nick, really controlling the pace and the tempo of this game.
Yeah, the way Nick has played this, the way he's positioned his Pokemon with Tapu Koko's Volt Switch, with utilizing Intimidate, it's just flawless play.
Really incredible play here from Nick, and you can see it's reflected in the Pokemon count. He has 3 Pokemon left to Markus's single Hariyama, which it's a very strong, bulky Pokemon, but I mean, the Arcanine and the Metagross are low. Tapu Koko is not. The match is forfeited because Markus sees the writing on the wall.
Yeah, Markus, he's just there, ready to adapt in Game 2, start thinking about what he needs to change in the match. We saw Smeargle not really get a whole lot done. Its map block was
really
pretty useful on turn 1 against Gyarados' Z move, but Arcanine got the extreme speed off before the map block, so maybe Nick was actually expecting something like a map block, and that's why he went for that extreme speed, because if he went for the Flare Blitz, if Smeargle got that map block off first, that could have been a devastating turn for him.
Absolutely. But we'll have to see if Markus can make those adjustments because, you know, Both these players are 8-1, which is a good record. It gives them a little bit of breathing room. There are a lot of players at 7-2 who are in this second day of Swiss. So basically, they do have one free loss to get back to where most of the field has started. But starting off your day with a loss, especially after coming off from such a long tournament yesterday, can really hurt your momentum going into the next few rounds.
Yeah, it can. But these are both top players. I think they're both fine. Even factoring in a Game 1 loss, even if they end up losing the round, I think they'll be totally fine heading into the remainder of today's Swiss rounds. But if I'm Markus, the kind of adjustment I'm looking to make here, I don't know if I want to bring Smeargle again if I'm Markus. It has some nice tricks up its sleeve, but it's clear Nick is prepared for that.
Yeah.
And Smeargle, we saw it doesn't have a focus sash, so it's not going to be hanging around very long. I think if I'm Markus, that's maybe the Pokemon I look to leave on the bench this match. Maybe try and change that up, because otherwise we saw Arcanine was definitely pretty useful. Porygon Z, also very useful, was able to pick up the knockout onto Gyarados. Hariyama, by the time it actually came in, the match was kind of already over, so maybe complement that with either the Neolego or the Tapu Bulu to round out the team, and I think that's the adjustment I'm looking to make if I'm Markus. I don't know if Smeargle is the right pick.
I think you could still use Smeargle, but you're going to have to use it alongside that Tapu Bulu, because when Tapu Koko comes out and sets that electric terrain, if all your Smeargle is able to do is map block, then it's basically useless. So you need to be able to have that option to Spore and just disrupt Nick's team.
Yeah, it's just so tricky since it revealed it's not Focus Sash. It's probably Choice Scarf, and when you're locking yourself into a move, it's so much easier to play around it. If you lock yourself into Spore, in comes Tapu Koko. Lock yourself into Map Block, you're just going to be seeing extreme speeds.
Yep.
It's going to be tough.
All right, well, it looks like Markus has decided to stick with the Smeargle and Porygon Z leads. Nick has also decided to stick with his Arcanine and Gyarados leads. So basically a repeat of Game 1 here for the leads, at least.
Yeah, so now it'll come down to a mind game. You have to imagine Nick, maybe he goes for the same move, maybe he doesn't, but going for the same move would be safest, because if Smeargle goes for another Map Block and Arcanine goes for a Flare Blitz and Gyarados, either it goes for a Dragon Dance or a Z move again, Porygon Z is going to get a free conversion, so you're kind of forced to go for that extreme speed again. But then if Smeargle decides not to go for a Map Block, then maybe you wish you did go for a Flare Blitz to pick up almost a knockout onto Porygon Z, because that Life Orb Flare Blitz will deal a lot of damage.
Yeah. I mean, Porygon Z probably could even just decide to forego the turn of conversion right here and just start going for some damage.
Yeah, simple Thunderbolt will still be enough to knock out Gyarados.
Potentially, if Nick plays it the exact same, Smeargle, instead of locking into Map Block, could potentially lock into a Spore with Tapu Koko not switching in.
It could even just switch out to Arcanine right away and just try and get an Intimidate off.
All right, well, it looks like Nick is going to protect his Gyarados this turn, so some adjustments being made here on Nick's side. Porygon Z also protecting, so both the Porygon Z and the Gyarados protecting themselves. Extreme speed into the Protect. Smeargle does go for the Spore and will connect with that Arcanine, so Markus did make some adjustments here, going for the Spore onto Arcanine and getting Arcanine sleeping. It is early.
Yeah, great turn there for Markus, was able to take the advantage on that turn, predicted the extreme speed onto Porygon Z, go for the Protect, and Gyarados also went for a Protect, which is surprising because if you're Nick, you have to assume there is the potential for Spore coming out.
Right.
You see what he was going for there. Maybe he was worried that Markus just went for a Thunderbolt right away onto Gyarados rather than try and set up. But yeah, it is kind of risky just doing that, because now Smeargle's free to Spore Gyarados too, and Porygon Z gets a free setup this turn.
Yeah, and even if Gyarados switches out to Tapu Koko, if that Porygon Z sets up, then it's going to be even more powerful. Chansey, though, is the alternative Pokemon for Nick here, switching in and getting immediately spored by that Smeargle. So Chansey now asleep, Arcanine asleep, using its one turn of sleep right now because of the extreme speed last turn. And here comes the Z conversion.
Yeah, but if there's one thing about Chansey, it doesn't really care about how powerful Porygon Z is, because Chansey has massive HP and special defense. Will be able to tank whatever attack it throws at it, and its ability, depending on what its choice of ability is, it might not even care about the sleep. Maybe it has even Healer if it wants to heal Arcanine, and we just see that right there. So Arcanine free to get an attack off this next turn.
Yeah, so Arcanine takes its one turn of sleep, but Chansey healing up its buddy, snoozing away. And it's really interesting you mentioned about Chansey not caring about taking any of those special attacks. I remember back in 2010, your first World Championships, Blissey was a very popular Pokemon, the evolved form of Chansey, simply because even Pokemon like Kyogre could not deal damage.
Yeah, in formats where you have so many strong special attackers, Chansey always tends to make an appearance, or Blissey. And in this format, you see there's Porygon Z, there's Tapu Koko, there's Tapu Lele, even Tapu Fini. There's so many special attackers that Chansey can just come in on, and there's a severe lack of fighting types, which are Chansey's only weakness. So Chansey definitely looking like a really good choice for Nick this match.
All right, well, Arcanine is awake, but Porygon Z has been able to set up. Markus switches Smeargle out for the fighting type that he does have, which is Hariyama. So Hariyama now out on the field. Arcanine just protecting itself this turn. Porygon Z going to be able to get off an attack here. Thunderbolt into the protect of that Arcanine. Chansey still asleep, using its one turn of sleep here. But now Hariyama out on the field, definitely threatening that Chansey and no healer.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd go for the Chansey if I'm Markus, because Arcanine just protected. You can go for a fake out onto that slot and have Porygon Z attack the slot. Chansey's still asleep, and even if it wakes up, it's not really threatening Markus a whole lot. It can maybe Toxic you, which will take forever to kill you. Maybe go for a Seismic Toss, but that's only a quarter of your HP about. So if I'm Markus, maybe just go for the fake out onto Arcanine and go for a Thunderbolt in that slot. You already know Gyarados is in the back. That's not switching into a Thunderbolt. And
yeah, Arcanine's just going to try and get out as much damage as it can before going down here with that extreme speed. Again, dealing a good amount of damage thanks to that Life Orb. But now that Z conversion boosted Porygon Z able to start the sweep here, knocking out that Arcanine cleanly. Chansey stays asleep here. And now Hariyama also able to get off a close combat onto Chansey. And thanks to that Eviolite and the massive amount of hit points that Chansey has, it is able to survive it, but it is now very weak.
Yeah, Chansey, it's not really going to be able to get anything done here, unfortunately. It did put in work with its healer ability, allowing Arcanine to get an extreme speed off, but that just wasn't enough damage because Porygon Z had already boosted. But Metagross does make a good switch in here.
Metagross being the last Pokemon, though, does mean that if Smeargle comes back out with Spore and Chansey goes down, it can just put Nick into a sleep lock with no electric terrain, but Metagross will be able to deal some damage back to these Pokemon.
Yeah, Metagross threatens the KO with Zen Headbutt onto Hariyama, and it'll do a lot of damage to Porygon Z, but it does have the defense boost, so it is going to be tough to knock it out this turn. I don't know if Metagross will be capable of that, but we see Hariyama actually switch out.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be the Arcanine coming out from Markus, getting the Intimidate off onto only Chansey, thanks to Metagross's clear body. Its stats will not be lowered. Chansey's attack, though, will fall. Porygon Z just going for another Thunderbolt here onto Chansey. Actually able to pick up the KO thanks to all of the work that Hariyama did. So Metagross with the Zen Headbutt will connect with that Porygon Z, dealing a good bit of damage there, but still not enough to get the KO. But looks like it might be in Extreme Speed range.
Yeah, but
if only Extreme Speed was still around.
Yeah, so Porygon Z is going to be able to get another attack off, either a Thunderbolt into Gyarados or Metagross. Markus is looking like he's in great shape here.
Having the Arcanine now out on the field will be able to threaten super effective damage onto the Metagross, with it, which if Markus is able to double up, will actually be able to knock it out before getting the weakness policy.
Yeah, if I'm Nick, though, I'm starting to look to game number 3 and how to deal with that Smeargle Porygon Z lead, because the way he played it this match, it was a lot of mind games, so it's kind of a coin flip on, you know, just what decision you decide to make. It didn't work out for him this game, so maybe in game 3, have a little bit of a better answer to it. No
protects, no priority, just a Thunderbolt from Porygon Z. That is the 3rd knockout for Porygon Z this game. Knocking out that Gyarados, and of course here comes the Flare Blitz from Arcanine. We know with the Intimidate it will not be enough to knock out this Metagross, and will instead activate the weakness policy, but another one will definitely be enough.
Yeah, and considering Metagross is slower than both Pokemon and Hariyama is still in the back, it's pretty much impossible for Metagross to pull this out.
Alright, well looks like Nick is going to give Porygon Z the 4 Pokemon sweep here, targeting down the Arcanine with that Zen Headbutt. Arcanine will go down, and now clearing the way for Porygon Z to pick up all 4 KOs on Nick's side.
Yeah, we see just how powerful the Z conversion Porygon Z is when you allow it to get set up. And it's not like Nick just allowed it to get set up. He simply couldn't stop it because Smeargle just spored the Arcanine. He predicted the extreme speed on turn 1. We saw just how much damage that did in game 1. This time, Markus played around that. Nick maybe didn't adjust to the Smeargle spore as much as he could have. And Porygon Z, we just see how much work it puts in here.
Absolutely. I feel like Nick maybe thought that he had scared Markus off from using the Smeargle because he brought Tapu Koko in Game 1. But Markus is a player who feels very confident in his ability to make those reads and to outplay someone, even if he's in a suboptimal matchup. So no surprise really that he brought the Smeargle again and then was able to find a way to actually pull out the win.
Yeah, really impressive that Markus was able to still bring the Smeargle but adjust to change up what Smeargle was doing, make it so Nick, even though he brought Chansey, which is kind of an answer to Spore sometimes if Healer is able to take effect at the end of the turn.
Right.
So there are still some counters for Smeargle, but having Tapu Koko on the bench this match meant that Smeargle, it was just too much to deal with. It was faster than everything on Nick's team. He just wasn't able to block the Spores.
Yep. And if you can't block the Spores against a team that focuses on getting a Z conversion boosted Porygon Z, you're going to have a bad day. It actually looks like Nick is just going to try and knock out this Porygon Z with the Bullet Punch, but because of the electric typing change, not able to do it. And Porygon Z completes the sweep and forces Game 3.
Yeah, so this should be a really exciting Game 3 because Nick is going to be thinking about making adjustments here after losing that match to Porygon Z so hard. It picked up every single KO, so you have to imagine Nick is going to expect Markus to not change up too much because of how much he just kind of was in control that entire match. If you're Markus, you're probably pretty comfortable with the way Porygon Z and Smeargle are handling in this match. So even though I said after Game 1 maybe Smeargle should go on the bench for Markus, Markus was able to find a way to adjust, have Smeargle come out, and still put in work, even though Nick knows its item, knows what moves it has. I'm sure Map Block wasn't expected for many players, but it's got Map Block, it's got Spore, and Nick, he made an adjustment, maybe expecting Markus to leave Smeargle in the back, but Smeargle still came alongside Porygon Z and was able to assure Porygon Z setup and assure its capability of sweeping.
Seeing that Game 2, you have to assume that Markus is just so comfortable with that Smeargle and Porygon Z lead that Nick is really going to should probably expect that again and just needs to be able to think about different ways that he can get around that. What are the best options that let him, deal with the Spore spam coming out from Smeargle, which is what really allowed Porygon Z to set up. Game 1, he did a really great job of making sure that Porygon Z took damage while it was setting up so that he could come in with some of these priority moves and finish off the KO there.
Yeah, because once Porygon Z gets the defense boost, it's so tough for Nick to take it out, as we saw. The Zen Headbutt from something as powerful as Metagross just not doing a whole lot of damage. So it was really important in Game 1 that he got the extreme speed off and was able to chunk a half of Porygon Z's HP before it even set up.
All right, we're there. The players are on your screen. Nick Navarre on the left, Markus Stadter on the right. Both players at 8-1 in this Swiss round so far, looking to go 9-1. The winner of this Game 3 will be advancing as a 9-1 player, and it's going to be the exact same leads for the third game in a row. Clearly, these are the leads that both of these players feel most comfortable with in this matchup.
Yeah, but it's another mind game here.
Gyarados is in a different position this time.
Oh,
so you never
is that
know.
a signal?
Could be.
But yeah, we saw Gyarados protect last time. The question is, does Porygon Z go for the setup right away? Maybe Markus expects Gyarados to go for an attack and decides to just straight up Thunderbolt and pick up the knockout. Maybe Nick expects that and just goes for the same moves again and hope it works this time. Maybe he even brought Tapu Koko in the back to switch in and block the Spore.
So much could happen here.
While that is still very useful, bringing Tapu Koko to block the Spore, it is risky against an electric-type Porygon Z after the conversion. You don't want to power it up even more.
Even without the conversion transfer, just powering up Porygon Z's Thunderbolt could be bad.
Yeah.
So both these players trying to figure out what makes Game 3 different. Smeargle goes for Fake Out. No Protects coming out from Nick's side, so Fake Out onto Arcanine. Gyarados goes for a Dragon Dance, so Nick is trying to set up here with that Gyarados. Just going for the Dragon Dance here, and no Protect from Arcanine. Porygon Z will go for the Z conversion, so Markus does get the conversion off. Nick adapts a little bit by getting the Dragon Dance off onto Gyarados.
Yeah, that's big because Gyarados is still going to be faster since it went for the Dragon Dance even after Porygon Z sets up, and Smeargle is now locked into Fake Out, so it's going to have to switch out. You have to imagine probably Arcanine in the back to get the Intimidate off onto both of Nick's physical attackers, especially lowering Gyarados' boosted attack back to normal.
Right.
But I mean, there's still a lot of damage coming out from Nick's end with that Dragon Dance from the Gyarados. It's going to still have its Z move, but you have to expect Porygon Z to probably protect this turn and have Smeargle go out into Arcanine. So if you're Nick, maybe you don't go for the Z move this turn.
Yeah, Porygon Z needs to keep itself healthy if Markus is going to take this game 3. Nick adapting by boosting his Gyarados in the face of Porygon Z's conversion boost. An interesting adaptation from the last couple of games here. We've seen 3 different ways that this turn 1 can play out, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah, and there we do see Smeargle switch out. I wonder if it's Arcanine. Yep, it is.
Yep, will be the Arcanine to get the Intimidate off onto both of Nick's Pokemon, the Arcanine and the Gyarados, which is now back to neutral hit points here. Looks like Arcanine actually going to retreat on Nick's side as well for Buzzwole. So Buzzwole making its first appearance here in Day 2. Gyarados just goes for a Waterfall. Porygon Z does not protect, just going to tank that Waterfall and fire back with this Thunderbolt onto Gyarados.
Yeah, great play from Markus there. It was clear that Nick was predicting that Porygon Z to go for a Protect, so he didn't want to waste his Z move. And Porygon Z resisting the Z move anyway, so Waterfall made sense, but the damage was just so low after that Intimidate and the boosted defense. But Buzzwole comes in. It's in a good spot against Porygon Z, but not against Arcanine.
Yeah, but Arcanine from Nick's side will be able to get the Intimidate off onto Markus's Arcanine, so making Buzzwole a little bit less scared of that little doggy. But Porygon Z is, with those boosts, just threatens literally everything.
Yeah, Buzzwole's special defense is not very good either, so Porygon Z, if it decides to attack the Buzzwole slot, it's going to be doing a lot of damage to it. Arcanine on Markus's end did get intimidated, but even so, Flare-Blitz should still deal just over half of Buzzwole's HP, so if Markus decides to double up into it, it should pick up the KO. Or Markus could focus on Arcanine if he's more worried about that threat, but it's always risky letting Buzzwole fire off an attack onto the Porygon Z.
Yeah, looks like Markus wants to preserve his Intimidate here. Retreating Arcanine for Hariyama, going to reset for some fake-out pressure. Nick actually protecting his Arcanine as well. So Buzzwole going to be the only Pokemon that's going on the offensive here with the Bulldoze. So not dealing damage to Porygon Z, not reducing its speed, and only hitting the Hariyama and reducing Hariyama's speed.
Yeah, not a Pokemon that really cares about its speed because of how slow it is.
And it's happy to be out on the field with fake-out pressure.
Yeah,
already seeing 1 Protect blown.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks to the fake-out pressure, this Hariyama definitely asserts pressure for Porygon Z. It allows it to fire off an attack safely. Markus is in a great spot in the way he's playing. The way he's positioning his board is it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah, this Porygon Z is just putting so much offensive pressure. These last 2 games, Markus has been able to find a way to get Porygon Z set up safely. Arcanine goes for a double protect and does not hit it. But it looks like Hariyama was going for Buzzwole anyway. Fake outs the Buzzwole, and a Thunderbolt coming through onto Arcanine is going to pick up the KO there. Buzzwole not able to do anything. Arcanine unable to protect. Gets knocked out instead by Porygon Z, and Porygon Z is just running over Nick's team again.
Yeah, I like the Buzzwole adjustment, though, because of the pressure onto Porygon Z. You threaten the one-hit KO even after it boosts. You have to imagine with Buzzwole's sky-high attack, although I don't know my Buzzwole damage calc, so maybe not.
I mean, it is electric type now, so no longer super effective damage.
It's not going to get super effective damage, but Buzzwole known for having sky-high attack. But Porygon Z does also have the defense boost. But I just love the way Markus is positioning his Pokemon, the way he's utilizing his own Arcanine's Intimidate, the way he's getting Hariyama in at the perfect moments to threaten Fake Out to allow Porygon Z to attack without fear of this Buzzwole firing an attack back on it. Though we do see Metagross come in here, which does threaten the Hariyama. And it shouldn't go down to just a Thunderbolt from this Porygon Z.
Yeah, but it may be difficult for Metagross to get those weakness policy boosts that it has been basically getting for free in every turn, or every game so far. Markus just going to send out the Smeargle again, while Porygon Z goes on the offensive with a Thunderbolt onto Metagross. Not enough, stays up with 7 hit points, but will get knocked out by that Bulldoze now from the Buzzwole, dealing a lot of damage, enough to put Metagross into KO range from Bulldoze. But the speed drop finally hitting Porygon Z puts it back to neutral, and also hitting that Smeargle could be a pretty big deal. And the Beast Boost from its own partner It is a mosquito. It just drained all of Metagross's power into itself.
Yeah, unfortunate though. You could see what Nick was going for there. He was hoping Metagross would be able to take both the Thunderbolt and a Bulldoze, able to get the weakness policy off, but unfortunately it could not take it. And Buzzwole now, it's going to get slept and just knocked out.
The Spore from Smeargle just going to wrap this one up. Because Buzzwole knocked out its own partner with the Bulldoze, Porygon Z doesn't get another 4-0 sweep here. But it will be Game 3 going to Markus here, and he will advance 9-1.
Yeah, very well played by Markus there. The Porygon Z just put in so much work there. The typing change ended up being such a big deal, allowing it to resist attacks like Bullet Punch, making things like Bounce not effective against it.
Absolutely.
And the damage it could put out, the defensive boost to let it stick around. I mean, it was just... We saw it KO Arcanine, which is known for being such a bulky Pokemon, but with the Life Orb set, Thunderbolt was just able to take it out after it only lost a little bit of HP. So, man, Porygon Z showing why it was Markus's MVP that match. It just did so much damage, and the way Markus played to allow it to stick around, allow it to even get set up in the first place, it was just so well done.
Absolutely. And it's just so incredible because a team like a Porygon Z team requires you to have a lot of skill. You have to know your moments, right? Game 1, we saw that Markus wasn't able to find the right moment to get Porygon Z boosted up with its conversion. And then in games 2 and 3, he was able to adapt from that game 1, find the moment that would allow him to actually get the Z conversion boost, figured out exactly when he could get those boosts, and then once Porygon Z got those boosts, he was able to protect it and make sure that it was set up as well as possible to actually then just run over Nick's team. Yeah,
it seemed like Nick's team really couldn't handle the combination of Smeargle and Porygon Z, especially with an Arcanine in the back threatening Intimidate on all of Nick's physical attackers. It just seemed like the way Markus built his team coming into this tournament, it was designed to be able to allow Porygon Z to set up and then keep it set up, keep it on the field.
Yeah, never had to switch Porygon Z out.
No, and he was never really in any threat for having Porygon Z get knocked out.
Yeah, and that's a really impressive skill for a trainer to have. Obviously, Markus is one of the top players here. Both of these players at the top of the championship point standings in both of their regions, or close to it. So really exciting match from both of them. Nick did manage to find that one win at the start of the day, so he is not leaving this round empty-handed. He does know that his team can win. He just happened to lose those last 2 sets, so he'll have to go back and figure out what happened, what went right in that first game, and then try to replicate that for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it just seemed like a lot of mind games. Like you mentioned at the start of Game 3, we saw 3 different ways that exact lead matchup could play out, and we saw in the first game it worked in Nick's favor, but in Games 2 and 3, Markus was just... The decisions he made on turn 1 just carried him through the rest of the game, and that's really when you let Porygon Z get set up for free like that, and just it's so difficult to take out once it does get set up, especially with the support Markus had. It just made turn 1 even more important. And
absolutely.
Unfortunately for Nick, maybe he didn't make the right calls, or Markus, he just made incredible calls. So they are 2 world-class players, and I'm excited to see how they progress throughout the day.
Yeah, and of course we will be seeing both of them at Worlds coming up in Anaheim. Really incredible play from both those players. It's for those of you watching at home, Markus's team probably requires a lot more nuance. I know having a Porygon Z team seems like it would be a really fun one to start with, but that's not a beginner's team. That's one that requires you to know the game, know how players think, and know how you can manage your board position.
Oh, absolutely. And we didn't even get to see the Neolego or the Tapu Bulu, and those are also Pokemon that can require a lot of skill, a lot of practice to make work. It's taken really so far this entire year to start seeing Neolego rise in a lot of popularity, see Tapu Bulu rise in popularity. So even those 2 require a lot of skill.
All right, well, I don't have enough skill to continue to commentate on those team-building choices. Ray, the 3-time world champion, may. But let's hear directly from Markus down on the floor with Anna.
Thanks, guys. I am here backstage with Markus. Markus, it's early morning, day 2. How's your energy level?
Yeah, actually, still trying to get in the role again. Since yesterday, I had a very successful day, but now starting things off with a rematch, actually, against Nick, who's one of the best players in the world, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I should have been maybe a little bit more ready for that matchup, but in the end, somehow things worked out, and now I'm like even more exhausted than I was at the beginning.
But it went pretty well for you. Tell us, excuse me, about your first match.
So as I said, Nick and we already matched up yesterday, and even though I felt like I had a pretty good matchup against his team, he was somewhat able to overcome the odds and revealed some tricks that I didn't know about and made some like clever reads. And was able to win our set yesterday. So I was thinking like, I kind of want to play him again because he's a very, very strong player, and I want to try and see how I match up against him. As my friend Baruch was saying yesterday, like we came here to the US to play against the very best of the best, and someone like Nick, who has so many championship points, who's done so well in the season, is really someone I want to go up against. And so, I was kind of just looking back at what I did wrong, and I realized that, maybe I just should have tried to rely a little bit more on my Porygon Z in that matchup because he doesn't have really great switches for my electric type attacks. However, it looked like in the first game, like the very first turn, it looked like he had found a very solid out to that, because usually my strategy revolves around using a support move to prevent all damage and then use a setup move in the first turn. But he had two moves that would bypass my supporting move, and so he could do a lot of damage to my Porygon the first turn, essentially losing me the first game in the very first turn. And so I realized, okay, like, this is a little bit more tricky. He probably thought about this all night, or maybe not all night, but like he maybe like gave it a little go and thought about what he would do, because it was pretty likely that we would face again. And so now I somehow managed to win, and I'm very, very happy with that.
I know that so much preparation goes into thinking about what you're going to do before you even get here, but it sounds like there's a lot of alteration, a lot of adaptation once you're here as well. How much change do you make to your playstyle once you arrive here at the tournament?
In this specific matchup, I brought the exact same 4 Pokemon to all 3 of the games because I felt like they gave me the best shot. But in the games itself, like, it all comes down to like trying to read what your opponent is going to do. For example, even though I started off with the same 2 Pokemon, and he also did start off with the same 2 Pokemon every single game, our first turn was a lot about reading and trying to mitigate like what is your opponent going to do, and then trying to read into that. So the first game he surprised me a little bit, made a very clever play, but then in the second game I got the upper hand, and so I knew like now for the third game, like what should I do? Try and go back with what didn't work in the first game, or what worked in the second game. But knowing Nick, he would probably like come up with some adaptation to that. So I decided to come up with a third play, and that made for like an even battleground. And so then I don't know, it wasn't decided on the first turn unlike the previous 2 games, but then we needed to think a little bit more about the end game. But once my Porygon Z goes off, it's like really, really tough to stop.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing how you continue to adapt this playstyle, how you continue to keep this momentum rolling. You're on a great start. Thank you so much for your time. And now it's time to head back to our casters.
Thanks, Anna. It's always great to hear from Markus, and it's always nice to see that some of our fellow commentators continue to put up good showings.
Some of our commentators aren't as washed up as we are.
Yeah, Markus, definitely one of those top players who we will be excited to see more of throughout the day and at Worlds. And that's one thing that he brought up that I forgot to mention at the start of our program. Day 1, once you play someone, you can't play them again. Day 2, you can play people again from day 1. So, for example, Nick and Markus both played each other in day 1. Now in day 2, that's reset, so they had to play each other again. So we're going to see a lot of grudge matches this day, because a lot of these players, since they've been at the top of the standings all day yesterday, have probably already played each other.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that they had played each other on day 1, but that makes a lot of sense now looking back, because it seemed like they knew a lot about each other's teams. It just seemed like they had played each other already, but now we know they actually had. Nick probably knew the map block was coming. He probably knew the way Markus liked to play. But seeing as Markus won both best of 3s, that's definitely pretty impressive going up against Nick.
Nick may have won the first one.
Nick won the first one?
I think he may have won the first one.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I misinterpreted what he was saying in the interview or not, but he's also a commentator, so if it's not clear, it's probably on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so both those players, having played each other already once, now twice, may end up with a third match in Top Cut coming up a little bit later on.
Both players both had 8-1 records coming in, so both are still alive for the Top Cut. And
absolutely.
It would be so exciting to see them play off for a third time.
Do a best of 3 of best of 3s.
Yeah.
So really interesting matchup there. Really excited to see how Markus and Nick continue on in the tournament. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will be back with more action from day 2 of Swiss. Round 11, I believe, is what it'll be. So stay tuned and don't go anywhere.